Friday, January the 21st, there was 18 video clips that were released from the Sedgwick County Police Department. These 18 videos is actually surveillance from the Sedgwick County Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center that is in Wichita, Kansas. CJ Cedric Lofton was restrained face down for over half an hour, and he did pass away. If you want to see these videos, I will link them below.
This week, the DA announced no charges would be filed in this case, citing the state's self-defense law and testimony that pressure was never applied to the 17-year-old's back as he laid in a prone position for more than 30 minutes. But as Caroline Elliott found, interviews from employees involved in this incident could state otherwise.
And over the last few days, we've received hours and hours of video evidence that includes interviews with the corrections staff directly involved. Now, in those interviews captured on Wichita Police body camera, you can clearly hear the employees state that pressure was in fact applied to Cedric's back. But Tuesday, when the district attorney announced there wouldn't be charges in this case, we heard a different story.
Somewhat, they're on their knees, or so that maybe one of the guys is kind of seated on the bench or leaning on the bench. One adult has him by his left arm, one by the right arm. They've got his ankles shackled, so one of them is at his ankles and one is holding him by the thighs. They each insist throughout that no one ever put pressure on his back, on his torso, his chest.
Sedgwick County District Attorney Mark Bennett describing the moments leading up to 17-year-old Cedric Lofton's death. A statement that differs from what employees told Wichita police just moments after the teen stopped breathing in custody back in September.
So when he was on his stomach and you guys had your safe holds, now, do you guys apply pressure anywhere else? Do you guys have like weight put onto his back?
Yeah, just onto his back. Yeah.
Now was it like, I know you're saying you have weight on it, but now how much weight were you were you putting your 100% weight on him to try and keep him down, or?
No, I wouldn't say.
Or just enough to where he can move.
Where that way he wouldn't get loose.
You understand why I was asking stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
With the whole like time frame and stuff like that.
Oh, for it. You mean, is that what you mean?
For what?
What do you mean?
Asphyxiation, because he was on the stomach for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the only reason I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
I'm just covering everybody's bases to make sure everything, you guys weren't doing anything wrong.
No.
Asphyxiation, the term the officer just used in the video, is defined as the process of being deprived of oxygen, which can result in death. Asphyxiation is why the prone position has become controversial in law enforcement. It's clear from the interview that corrections employees applied pressure on Cedric's back. Corrections staff said in the video they restrained the teen and held him down because he was being aggressive. But because the video is so far away, it's hard to tell if corrections staff were applying pressure to Cedric's back. But we just heard it's clear that's what happened at some point from the interviews in the body cam video. Braxton.
And Caroline, obviously these findings could change the way this case is playing out.
Yeah, Braxton, for the family, it certainly makes them question this decision. The family's now asking why the district attorney is saying something different than what we just heard in the video. The family believes that these facts change this entire case, which is why they're pushing for this case to be reopened. But this time, Braxton, they want a special prosecutor.
Kansas governor orders DCF investigation in Wichita teen Cedric Lofton's death. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly said she has ordered the Kansas Department for Children and Families to investigate a private foster care agency's handling of Cedric Lofton, a 17-year-old black foster child who died after being restrained on his stomach for over half an hour in September. This situation is tragic, and we must find a way to ensure something like this never happens again. Lofton was arrested and taken to a juvenile detention facility early on September 24th after his foster father refused to let him back into the house until he received a mental evaluation. The foster father said he was acting on the advice of a caseworker with CA, a private foster care agency that contracts with DCF. What followed was a lengthy struggle between Lofton, Wichita police officers and later county juvenile detention staff that led to his death. I've also directed the Department for Children and Families to thoroughly investigate this case to ensure policy and procedures were properly followed, and to determine if these processes need to be changed or refined. Kelly's statement came in response to a request for comment on a statement by Sedgwick County District Attorney Mark Bennett, who announced last week that he would not pursue criminal charges in the case because of the state's self-defense law, commonly referred to as stand your ground. In Bennett's written report on the Lofton case, he questioned whether the foster care agency acted properly. Whether the state of Kansas should accept a foster care system that responds to a foster father's expression of concern that his foster son is in mental distress by telling the man, "Don't let him in the house and call the police," is a legitimate question. A question, in fact, that may well demand answers, Bennett said in his written report. This should never have happened, Bennett said of Lofton's in-custody death. Wichita and Sedgwick County have released police body camera footage and surveillance video inside the Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center. The video shows Wichita police officers arrested Lofton after he declined to willingly go to Ascension Via Christi St. Joseph Hospital for a mental evaluation. Officers initiated physical contact with Lofton, and when he became combative, they handcuffed him and then placed him in a wrap restraint, a canvas wrapped around the legs, arms and lower torso while the person is in a seated position, then strapped to immobilize the person and keep them from harming themselves or others. Instead of taking him to St. Joseph, Wichita police took Lofton to JIAC on 4 counts of battering a law enforcement officer. After he was removed from the wrap and police left the scene, Lofton and JIAC staff became involved in another physical altercation, video shows. A JIAC employee and several juvenile detention officers restrained Lofton inside a holding cell for nearly 45 minutes before noticing he did not have a pulse. A representative for the private foster agency told the Eagle that TIC does not have a specific procedure for advising foster parents on how to handle a child in crisis and that mental health crises are dealt with case by case. Foster care workers are 24/7, and so they respond if a kid is sick or if a kid is having behavioral issues or anything, so they're there to guide a foster family through any sort of situation that may arise, TICA spokesperson Alex Wiebel said. Now state and local officials vow to improve the system that failed Lofton, a foster child whose guardian had voiced concerns that his mental health was deteriorating. This situation is tragic, and we must find a way to ensure something like this never happens again, Governor Laura Kelly said in a written statement to the Eagle. And reports by county corrections employees and the district attorney to identify critical turning points in authorities' handling of the black teen on the night he was taken into custody and fatally restrained. The chain of events started when a caseworker told Lofton's foster father to call police rather than let him in the house after he had been reported as a runaway. Wichita police then detained the teen after trying to convince him to seek a mental health evaluation. When he became combative, they took him to a juvenile facility rather than a hospital. There, corrections staff physically restrained Lofton in his cell for almost 45 minutes, according to video footage, approximately 10 minutes longer than the district attorney's report noted. Wichita police body cam footage shows Cedric Lofton being taken into custody. Wichita police have released video of officers' interactions with Cedric Lofton on September 24, the day the 17-year-old foster child was taken to the county's juvenile intake facility, where he was restrained and lost consciousness. Footage of Lofton's interactions with corrections staff from within Sedgwick County's Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center has also been withheld from the public up to this point. Wichita police transported Lofton to JIAC in the early hours of September 24 in a wrap restraint device and later returned to the juvenile facility when corrections staff called for backup. The 5 Sedgwick County corrections staff who fatally restrained 17-year-old Cedric C.J. Lofton in a Wichita juvenile intake facility last September remain on paid administrative leave, according to a county spokesperson. We will be reviewing their status over the next several days and will make a determination on a timeline for returning to work.
The amount of community members asking for transparency in the Cedric Lofton case continues to grow as we wait for the Cedric County District Attorney's Office to complete a review. Tonight, Sean Logging spoke to some people who say this case has them wanting to see action.
Color people, the system is not for us.
Treva Smith is among the people in Wichita following the Cedric Lofton case. It's a case, she says, has her wanting to do more.
It's all about unity. We're all trying to get one thing accomplished. We're all out for one thing to get accomplished, is justice for Mr. Lofton.
The 17-year-old died last September after being taken to the Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center. The autopsy lists his manner of death as a homicide. Treva says she's working to support efforts like a petition that was announced last week at a protest calling for DA Mark Bennett to recuse himself and have a special prosecutor assigned.
And all too often, where we're reaching out and calling for help, and the individuals who are supposed to provide that help for us end up being more of a harm to us than a help.
There is no other way to look at this other than cruel and unusual punishment. Not to mention this was a juvenile. This was a 17-year-old foster child. The foster system as well as the juvenile detention facility failed this child. This is completely ridiculous. This is an unlawful, wrongful death due to fatal restraining of this child. He had mental health issues, that was known. So, in my opinion, the foster family, the whole CPS system, as well as this juvenile detention system, needs to be held accountable for this child's death. Justice for Cedric.
District Attorney Mark Bennett announced Tuesday that no criminal charges will be brought against the corrections employees who kept Lofton face down for as long as 39 minutes during an extended struggle early on September 24th. Lofton went into cardiac arrest due to lack of oxygen and died at a hospital 2 days later. Bennett determined that the corrections staff were acting in self-defense and therefore immune from prosecution as a result of Kansas's robust stand your ground law. This conclusion is not a reflection of this office's approval of what happened to Cedric Lofton on September 24, 2021. Sedgwick County Corrections Director Glenda Martins called Lofton's death a tragedy but said employees acted well within the policy and the requirements of that policy when they restrained the teen. At the same press conference, Martins announced a community advisory task force that will review the circumstances of Lofton's death and make policy recommendations. County officials say footage from within the juvenile intake facility, which has been kept from the public up to this point.
And yet another child in the foster care system failed by the very system that is supposedly there to help them. The very system that says they screen the foster families. They make sure they have medications for their mental illnesses. Okay, what is the excuse? Again, justice for Cedric Lofton. Thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, this is Unjustified.